Are you tired of traffic jams? I know, living in Mumbai, most of us here, at least in this city, are no stranger to long commutes and sitting in our cars for hours. But this is the story of many cities in India. There is lack of parking space, pollution is rampant, and many don't want to buy a car because of the hassle of driving through congestion. So what do Indians think about travel and commute in their cities? In a first urban mobility happiness survey conducted by MG Motor India by Nielsen to measure urban citizens' satisfaction with their transportation choices, what did they find? Well, a lot. This report gives us an insight into the mobility patterns of people residing in major Indian cities and the challenges that they face while commuting in their cities. Let's talk about the multiple issues that the survey covers. The first one is with regards to parking infrastructure. 74% of the respondents say they struggle with parking. Nearly 64% say that they don't even use their cars simply because of the parking hassle. The second issue, fuel price hikes. How heavy is that on your pocket? Is driving your own, is the issue of fuel price driving you nuts every day? 52% say fuel price impacts their travel every day. Over 50% say they spend more than 6,000 rupees on fuel every month. The third issue that the survey covers, the issue of long commutes, and that's what I began talking about in the opening of this program, that it is one of the issues that is haunting many of our city dwellers. A worry that many have. 71% say they spend over 30 minutes traveling every day. 61% say that the travel time has increased drastically compared to 5 years ago. The fourth issue that we have picked up from the survey is the issue of pollution and the environment concerns. 80% of those surveyed feel that the air is polluted in their cities and that impacts their mobility choice. 64% feel that environment is an important factor. But despite growing environmental concerns, what is intriguing is that many people in major Indian cities still favor petrol-powered vehicles over the other varieties. The survey was conducted in Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Pune, Mumbai, Delhi, NCR, Chennai, Hyderabad and Kolkata. So that roughly covers all of the major cities in India. All of these cities are known for various commuting challenges that the residents face on a daily basis. While Kolkata, Pune and Chennai scored well on the index, ratings for Mumbai, Delhi, NCR, Hyderabad and Bengaluru as well as Ahmedabad did not do so well on the index. So here we are talking about the happiness index, the satisfaction index of the commuters. So these are the cities and that's the survey for you. In a nutshell, of course, there are many more intricacies, there are important details which we will discuss during the course of this program. So let's welcome Gaurav Gupta, Chief Commercial Officer, MG Motor India, Sonal Shah, Executive Director, CSEC, she's an urban mobility expert, Keshav Surya Narayanan, Deputy Manager at ITDP India. Very warm welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining us here on Mirror Now. And I want to begin right away talking about the biggest demon that we are all facing in these metro cities, the issue of congestion, the issue of long commute. Gaurav Gupta, the findings of the Urban Mobility Happiness Survey in a way validates, the usual suspects, the commute time, parking woes, fuel consumption, environmental concerns, issues that have dominated the discourse when it comes to travel and transport, especially road transport. What it has done is put the spotlight on the quantum of the problem, the level and the extent, the magnitude, the proportion of inconvenience that is faced by the commuters, the figures that we just read out. Now, a couple of things stand out. Let's begin with this, the biggest one of them all, like I said, congestion and the increase in commute time, which 71% saying that they spend over 30 minutes traveling every day. 61% saying that the travel time has increased drastically in the last 5 years. This is one of the things that across cities people are dealing with. Mr. Gupta.
What is interesting, Afrida, is that this probably would be the first time that we've got a formal survey done to really capture the essence that we all are facing in our daily commute. And I think in a way, this supports and this drives the need to really look at urban mobility in a new manner. In addition to the numbers you just mentioned,
Yes.
what is also a cause of concern is to look at how much people are driving on a daily basis. What the study revealed was that about 88% of the people are driving just about 30 or less than 30 kilometers a day. But nevertheless, they are still occupying the roads. Additionally, what will be interesting is more than 71% of people are either alone or just two people in the car. So these are the kind of numbers which really make us understand that how do we look at the future need of the country from a mobility perspective. If there are mostly one or two people in the car, they're driving only about 30 kilometers a day. And like you had mentioned, more than 50% of people do worry about the high cost of fuel that they have to spend per day. Is there a need to really bring in an urban mobility, a personal mobility, which can support the need of the traveler and also reduce the kind of pressure we have on the infrastructure? That has been a very good revelation from this entire first of its kind, the survey that has been done along with Nielsen.
Yes, because this is important for policymakers. Sonal Shah and those of us who have traveled abroad, we know that if you have a plan in place, there can be a process of streamlining. Because I remember from my travels in other countries, there are countries that do not allow, like Mr. Gupta said, one person traveling in a single car, they do not get access to certain highways. You have to have a full occupancy in order to access certain roads. There are ways and means that we can do this. Do you believe that a survey like this was much awaited, much needed to get the full picture so that you can get down to the drawing board and make a plan on how to get things in order?
Yeah, thank you, Afrida, for having me.
Pleasure.
I think I'd like to clarify who this commuter is. This is primarily a commuter traveling by car, which constitute a minority of trips in urban India. Today, even in some of our large cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Kolkata, over 75% of our trips are by walk, cycle, and public transport. And even in the rest, the balance 25, a majority of these are two-wheelers. So let's be very clear. This survey has actually targeted a minority of trips in urban India. Even in cities like Pune and Ahmedabad, you have anywhere between 50 to 60% of trips by walk, cycle, public transport. So in my opinion, we need to take a step back and reflect that this minority of users is actually creating a challenge for a majority of users. Yeah, so I wanted to foreground that front and center that the urban commuter in India is walking, cycling, and using public transport. And car owners, while being a minority, have still a majority of road space allocated, sometimes 80% or more. So I just want to stop here before
Yes, I get that.
adding more later as well.
That is true, but why this is important is also because it is interconnected to the fact that we do not have a robust public transport system. So while we talk about a very small minority private car owners that this survey is relevant to, this is important for us to reflect on the other big issues that perhaps could be an eye opener. Keshav Surya Narayanan, do you believe that this is where the survey comes in as an important sounding board, so to speak, about where we stand? And like we had Sonal Shah remind us that a bulk of the urban commuters are taking the more inconvenient, sometimes more inconvenient ways because they cannot all afford to have a private car and travel by a private car. So, in a way, it exposes those other issues as well. They're all connected to it, isn't it?
Absolutely, Afrida. Thank you for having me. I would definitely echo what Sonal said about who the survey looks at and who gets left out of it. And we're looking at 18 to 37-year-olds who own at least one car. Who gets left out are younger children who walk to school, older adults who may not be able to travel so easily, and a vast majority of people who prefer or can only afford other modes. And you rightly pointed out that one of the reasons for people to depend on private motor vehicles is also the lack of a robust public transport system, like many countries, many cities in countries abroad do have. And that is something that is an urgent need today, that we're
Yes.
able to develop a robust and world class public transport system that we can all be proud of. And then to expect people to shift from either single occupancy cars or even two wheelers to public transport systems might be a very realistic ask. And that should be a demand, a need that we have today that we fulfill. And that's where I think the survey can also make a case for us to invest more in making our public transport systems more robust and see how we can prioritize the users who constitute the majority of urban trips.
Yes, we have limited time. I want to touch upon a couple of other topics as well. Gaurav Gupta, I'll allow you to comment on what the other speakers are talking about. You know, this being an urban mobility survey does not cover a whole lot of other urban commuters. And then we can go to the other points. But quick comment on that point, please.
In fact, I would say that both Sonal and Keshav have actually reinforced the point that is leading to the situation of urban congestion, pollution, because the minority, as Sonal mentioned, are the ones who really are causing the entire situation of traffic as well. And therefore, the survey actually reveals the need that how this 20-80 ratio, for example, if I just say a thumb rule, that 20% of the occupants of the infrastructure available, 20% of the users are actually consuming the 80% of the infrastructure and impacting, whether it is mobility needs, parking anxiety, pollution, chaos, traffic, and likewise.
Yes.
And therefore, the need to address this becomes also a very important aspect, right? So in my mind, the way I read this is that if this 80% user base of the real estate available is in a way providing a better way of transportation, a size form which is actually useful for them for their need, convenience, as well as probably looking at electric vehicle as an option, a small electric vehicle, a smart city car. At least this particular set then also helps in reducing the overall congestion, helps in reducing the pollution, and overall it doesn't become the so-called user of the 80% of real estate and the real cause of concern that we all have.
Yes, because look at the wastage in fuel, the wastage in man hours, the environmental damage. It's a hydra-headed demon in a way if you have that many cars on the road occupying that much space for that long a time. I want to touch on a couple of other topics since you brought up the issue of electric vehicles, petrol versus diesel versus electric vehicle. When you look at the survey, says that Indians, most people who are, who afford cars or buy cars, go for petrol vehicles. Why is that, Gaurav Gupta?
See, electric vehicle as a overall proportion of the industry is still very low, but the growth rate has been phenomenal. If I would say that just by about 2,000 cars in 2020, it has reached almost 50,000 cars last year, and will be growing by almost 4 times in this calendar year. So the growth rate is very, very update right now. One of the key concerns also is the kind of choices consumers have right now. They are mostly on the, I would say, the plus 15 lakh kind of bracket from an affordability perspective. So there is going to be a need, and there is a need to bring in, you could say a low cost, but not just from a cost perspective, but it has to be what will serve the people's needs. A mobility need which can really be small, agile, which can be electric. Obviously, it becomes automatic as well.
Yes.
And at a good price point, so that people are able to use it in their mobility needs.
Yes, Sonal Shah, do you think this is where probably the policymakers come in, the government of the day comes in? Why not have a campaign, an active campaign run by the government, like you have so many other government programs, to create awareness around this? The fact that you need to phase out certain polluting vehicles must be done with a great sense of urgency given our pollution levels.
Absolutely. And I'm going to echo what Gaurav and Keshav also said. that in addition to supply side interventions like good quality public transport infrastructure, better footpaths for people to walk, we also need to look at demand management measures because electric vehicles will not solve our congestion problem. And what will is, for example, looking at managing and pricing on street parking. I'm going to give you a very quick data point if it helps. Um, when we did a survey around Green Park Metro Station in Delhi, we found that only 4 out of 12 major roads within a walking distance, 5-minute walking distance, were pricing parking. Most of the vehicles were parking for free. So to me, I think, and if you compare this, and even if you were paying, you would pay up to 100 rupees a day. But if you compare that with the real estate value of land, that you would have to pay anywhere between 330 to 530 rupees a day. So currently, we are subsidizing use for car owners. And whether it's electric or fossil fuel, it's not going to solve your congestion problem.
Right. Congestion problem requires a multi-pronged approach. Sonal Shah explaining that very well. Do you concede, Keshav Suryanarayanan, on this? The issue of parking space. For instance, the survey says 74% have said that they struggle with parking space. Many also, for many, it's a deterrent. In fact, to my mind, if it is becoming a deterrent to take out your personal car and take public transport, perhaps it's not such a bad thing. But tell us about the fact that our cities are so haphazard when it comes to parking space, and if that there can be a solution there. These are issues maybe not in the priority of things, but these are critical for the happiness quotient for the urban dwellers in this country.
Absolutely. I think I completely agree with what Sonal said. And I think we're very close to, when we look at the survey results, we're very close to seeing what the problem is and connecting the different parts that seem disconnected, but are actually very closely connected. So, for example, we know that space on our roads is very limited and is a very precious commodity, but we give it away for free. And when we speak about converting vehicles to electric, imagine a street filled with cars today, and you convert all of them to electric, the traffic is not going to go down. And when we don't even have enough space for all of these vehicles to move freely, why are we giving space that is already limited away for parking for free? And so parking definitely needs to, like Sonal mentioned, be moved off the streets and also be priced. And that's the only way that we can look at reducing the demand itself. And that limited road space that we have can be used for modes that more efficiently move people, which is, for example, if we want to look at electric vehicles, we could look at prioritizing the electrification of buses or shared mobility modes, which serve a lot more people more efficiently. And to their credit, that's what the government has been doing as well, with the FAME scheme that's looking at incentivizing the shift to electric vehicles and accelerating that transition. The priority has been on shared modes with fewer incentives for private vehicles. And so that's the direction to go. And I think we're already on that path. So yeah, just
long-term projects, but again, we need leadership with a vision to make it happen, to implement things on ground. But Gaurav Gupta, since it's an urban mobility happiness survey, and I brought out the point about happiness quotient there in the overall happiness score, some cities have fared well, some have not. Based on the ratings provided by the respondents, we're saying Kolkata, Pune, Chennai scored well on the index. The rest of the cities did not. What did you, glean from those responses that came in from these cities?
Very important is that large metro cities, you need to have a multimodal mix of transportation requirements. So while there is a need to look at, you're looking at mass movement, whether it is bus movement, metro trains, etc. But there will always be vehicular traffic. And the important part that we take away from this survey is that what kind of vehicle form and shape would be important to help ease the congestion. Yes, one is congestion, but the other point also with this congestion becomes pollution, because the longer the cars spend time on the road, they are emitting, and adding to the pollution levels itself. So
Yes.
our takeaway from here is that we have to understand and, help educate people more that if there are going to be only, one or two at best, like I was mentioning, 71% of people are just either solo or at best two people in the car. Do we really need big cars which occupy the real estate of our mobility transport infrastructure? Second, if pollution is a requirement, is a real concern, and it is, right? How fast can we move to electric vehicles? And at the same time, if the average user, like I said, 88% are people driving 30 or less kilometers on a daily basis, do we really have a need to have, cars which are going to give you a lot of large mileage for the electric vehicle battery? Because that is when the entire, you could say the tipping point will happen. You have cars which are going to be serving your requirements, not having big cars, but if there are two people, small size cars, but adequate enough. You have electric, which is going to be aiding on helping pollution get controlled. And at the same time, you have agility. So in terms of mobility factor, you are not stuck in traffic. You don't have parking anxiety. And I would just add to what Sonal mentioned, a good way to do this would be that if you have an electric vehicle, for example, for you, the car, there could be a free parking, but for the others, there could be some kind of fee. I'm not going to be biased here, but in a way to aid in terms of reducing the pollution.
It all adds up, isn't it, Sonal Shah? It all adds up, why, and I'm glad that this survey actually talks about stress, anxiety. Data from the survey point towards problems of owning an automobile. As we read out earlier, 85% car owners feel anxious during their daily travel. It adds to stress. It depletes from the human happiness factor. 74%, like I mentioned, struggle with parking space. 63% of them said they feel extremely unhappy with the honking. All of that adds to our daily anxiety, to our daily stress. Sonal Shah, are there solutions to the problems reported here which can be immediately put into effect? Is there any 2 or 3 things that you would like to say on that?
Sure. I think we are seeing some things. It's just taking time, I think. In some cities, we are seeing public transport infrastructure being built, both in terms of metro rail systems, and we also saw the government of India look at a tender for close to 5 and then another 5,000 electric buses. Unfortunately, Afrida, I don't think it's about quick solutions. It will take a little time, because roads are complex and we have users. But I would say that we need, at this point, bold action on reclaiming road space for existing users who are already using environmentally sustainable modes of transport. That is the bold action we really, really need.
I think
but
that's a very... Yes.
It's difficult to implement, so it may take a little time.
Right. It needs intent, isn't it? Where there is a will, there is a way. But I would like to thank all 3 of you for joining us here today on the program. Gaurav Gupta, Sonal Shah and Keshav Surya Narayanan, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.